Hello and welcome to Polyglot Principles. My name is Modja. I am a hyper-polyglot who speaks 8 languages, and I speak 4 of those at an advanced level. This is the channel where I help ambitious language learners go from intermediate to advanced in their target language. And I do this by giving you a very deep and detailed understanding of the principles of language learning. So if you're an ambitious language learner, you're the type of person who's not satisfied with just doing a good job, getting by in the language. You want to become really good, and you're currently at the intermediate level or maybe slightly advanced, and you want to become advanced and fluent in the language, then this is the channel for you. And if you're also the person who doesn't like shallow answers but likes to go into detail about things, then this is also the channel for you. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because I publish videos every Monday at 8 a.m. Central African time, designed specifically to help you go from intermediate to advanced in your target language. So, today's video is about self-correction. Should you self-correct when speaking is the question. So, when we talk about self-correction, what we really mean is this. For example, you're speaking your target language, whatever it is. And as you speak, you realize you've just made a mistake. You said something incorrectly. Now you have two main options. You can correct what you said. Let's say you're speaking English and you said, Let's say you pronounced exaggerate as exaggerate, let's say. Instead of saying exaggerate, you said exaggerate. And you notice, oh no, I said exaggerate. I should say exaggerate. So you could either continue talking or you could repronounce the word, right? You could try to correct your mistake. So those are the two main options you have: continue talking or correct your mistake. And if you decide to correct your mistake while speaking, that's called self-correction. And the question is, should you self-correct or should you not self-correct? Is it a good idea or not? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as usual, I have a question for you. Do you think self-correction is a good idea, or do you think it isn't? Should you self-correct or not? Please pause this video, go to the description, and let me know what you think, whether one should self-correct or not, and why. And then come back to this video and find out if what you think agrees with what I think. Okay. And as usual, if you have a question for me, before we dig in really deep here, if you have a question for me, make sure to send me an email. My email is polyglotprinciples@gmail.com, polyglotprinciples@gmail.com. The email is also in the description of this video. So just send me an email, ask me a question, criticize me, encourage me, whatever you want to do. I'm always very glad to hear from you. And also, everything I'm sharing in this video, I've written down every idea that I'm going to share in written form, in a kind of note form, document form. If you want to get that, then also just go to the description of this video and there's a link to the notes to this video, right, to give you a deep understanding of what I'm about to say. But alright, so let's dig in deep now. And the question is, should you self-correct or not? So let's just go and ask the question, what are the positive effects of self-correction? So basically, when you start learning a language, almost everything you say is wrong. Right? Everything, in fact, the first time you start a language, everything you say is wrong. Everything you're doing is a mistake. So all you have is bad habits in the language. And then over time, you want to reduce the bad habits, reinforcing them with good habits. So for example, you want to learn, let's say, a particular tense, the present tense. That's a good habit. You want to internalize it, and you want to undo all the wrong things, all the mistakes you make when using the present tense, and so on. So self-correction the value of self-correction is that it enables you to reinforce good habits and undermine bad ones. So for example, let's just use our case here. Actually, I use a good example with German speakers. Some German speakers have the problem of using become instead of get. So instead of saying, let's say, I get food, they say I become food, right? And that's actually comes from the German language. In German, bekommen, which kind of sounds like become, is actually, in German, bekommen means to get. So some German speakers, instead of saying I get food or I got food, they just say I become food. Okay, so this is obviously a mistake. In English, you don't say become, you don't say I become food, you say I get food. Okay, so in order to correct this mistake, because that's a bad habit, right? This person is going to keep saying become instead of get a lot. So obviously, in order to correct that mistake, well, they need to do self-correction, isn't it? They say, every time they say become, they say, oh, not become, get. The more they do this self-correction, the more they're going to reinforce the habit of using get and diminish the habit of using become in this kind of context. So this is one of the values of self-correction, is that it reinforces good habits and weakens or eliminates, actually eradicates over time bad habits. But let's ask the question, well, what are the negative effects of self-correction? The biggest problem with self-correction is that it leads to self-doubt and leads to something I call the downward spiral. So there's a concept in chess, right? So imagine this, you go to a chess tournament and there are multiple games. Let's say you need to play 10 games, okay? You show up to game 1 and maybe you win game 1. But then you lose game 2, you lose game 3, you lose game 4, and let's say you lose game 5. Now you've got 5 more games to play. But because you've lost so many games, you become hypercritical of yourself. That means that game 6, you're not going to play to the best of your ability. That happens a lot. Game 7, you're playing worse. Every time you're second guessing yourself. And you wind up playing way below your ability. That's called the downward spiral, where you just keep going down and down and down and down. One loss leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Right. This is the downward spiral. Of course, if you're a chess player, you don't want to get caught in the downward spiral. Right? Losing too much in a row. Right, and just going down as a result. We also have the downward spiral in language learning. Perhaps you've had this experience before. You're speaking a language, your target language, and then you make a mistake. Let's say you say something incorrectly, okay, and then you decide to self-correct, say, oh no, I should have said this instead. But now you become hypercritical. As you're speaking, you're thinking about, am I speaking correctly? Am I using the correct grammar? You're thinking too much about stuff. And as a result, you make another mistake, which makes you even more hypercritical. And so, as you continue to speak, you speak worse and worse and worse and worse. You get caught again in the downward spiral. You want to avoid this when speaking, because it is possible for you to speak way below your ability because you're self-correcting and doubting yourself. And this is the primary disadvantage of self-correction while speaking. Right. It just leads to self-doubt and you end up way underperforming. Right. So, we're going to continue digging deep here. So as I mentioned before, everything I'm discussing in this video, it's detailed, but my notes are even more detailed on the topic. So if you want to really understand self-correction and make sure that it doesn't hinder your path to fluency and actually help you to become more fluent, then there is also, I've not only spoken, I'm not only saying this in spoken form, I also have notes on it. And as I mentioned before, the notes are in the description of this video. And I make videos every Monday at Central African Time, specifically designed to help you go from intermediate to advanced in your target language. So if you don't want to miss out on those videos, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button if you're liking this video. And give us a thumbs up, of course. Alright. So let's continue here. So we've seen what the positive effect of self-correction is. Self-correction helps you to reinforce good habits and become more fluent. The disadvantage is that it gets you to doubt yourself and get caught in the downward spiral. Okay, so now let's talk about, so when should you self-correct, right? We are seeing the advantage of self-correction is very huge, improvement, but the disadvantage is also huge, underperforming, being too self-critical. So then the question arises again, should you self-correct or not? Okay? And the answer is, what we really want is the best of both worlds. We want to have our cake and eat it too. What we really want is to have the benefits of self-correction, which means we want to be able to reinforce good habits in the language and undo bad ones. We want to do that. We want to improve in the language. But at the very same time, we also don't want to be caught in the downward spiral, where because we made one mistake when speaking, that leads to another and another, and then we end up underperforming. Can we have both, is the question. Can we Can we not get caught in the downward spiral? Can we perform to the best of our ability but still improve through self-correction? Yeah, it turns out that you can, but you need to split your mind into two parts. Right? I've mentioned this a bit before, but it's an important concept. I need to repeat it. And you want to divide your language learning into two parts: practice and performance. A good analogy is, think of a basketball player. A basketball player has his basketball play is divided into two parts. There is practice and there is the big game, performance. During practice, the player is, let's say, with his coach, and they're working on everything about his game. The coach is working on how he dribbles. The coach is working on how he shoots. They're working on his posture. Everything about him is being criticized. Whenever he makes a mistake, the practice is stopped and he has to correct that mistake, and so on. So this is the phase where he does a lot of self-correction, self-doubt. Am I really shooting correctly? How are my breathing patterns while I'm playing? This is a practice mode. But then, and this is very useful to the player, of course, right? The basketball player, because during practice mode, he's correcting mistakes and therefore he's getting better and better and better and better. So he's improving. And then he has another part called the big game or the game time. Game time is what I'm calling performance mode. During performance mode, he doesn't second guess himself. When he goes onto the pitch, onto the basketball court to play, he's just moving. Right? If he makes a mistake, let's say he shot poorly. Right? If he starts thinking about, oh, that shot that I missed, here's what I should have done, that will distract him and he won't be able to play well again. So in that case, he doesn't self-correct at all during performance. He just plays to the best of ability. If he makes a mistake, he just lets it go and shoots again and so on. And because he behaves this way, he performs to the best of his ability. So he self-corrects during practice, but trusts his instincts and just continues playing during performance mode. And as a result, he's able to get the best of both worlds. During the practice mode, during this self-correction, he improves his ability to play. And then during performance mode, he plays to the best of his ability because he's not second-guessing himself and he's just trusting his instincts. The same can apply to language learning. You can divide your language learning into two parts: practice and performance. During your practice mode in language learning, you're correcting your grammar, you're questioning your pronunciation, you're saying something and then trying to say it differently and so on. Because you're correcting your mistakes, self-correcting during practice mode in language learning, you're going to improve. Your grammar will get better, your pronunciation will get better, your capacity to express ideas will get better, and so on. However, then you have a time during your language which is called performance mode. This is maybe you decide to speak to people. When you're speaking in front of people, in this point, you're like the basketball player, you're not self-correcting. If you speak and you make a mistake, you keep going. If you, let's say, if you're a German speaker and you were speaking, then you ended up saying, I become food instead of I get food. You don't say, oh no, I get food. No, you just keep talking. So long as people can understand you, just keep talking. Okay? And that's because you're continuing to talk during performance mode, you're not getting hung up on your mistakes. You're not thinking about your mistakes. You're not doubting yourself. As a result, you're performing to the best of your ability. And then later on, you can go back again and maybe if it's a speech or you are talking to someone, maybe you can record yourself speaking in performance mode. And then later in practice mode, you can look at your mistakes and correct them. And if you perform this process of practice and performance, you're definitely going to improve. Right? So this is one option you have, is divide your practice, as we said, into performance and practice. This is your language learning. Another method you could use is you can also train yourself to self-correct without falling into the downward spiral. Imagine, we gave the example of chess before. Imagine the chess player who goes to a tournament. Let's say it's a 10-game tournament. You play one game, then the next and the next. You're playing them consecutively until the 10th game. Let's say he loses the first game, okay? And let's say he loses the second game. And the player decides to look at the games and try to analyze his mistakes and self-correct. But when he goes to game 3, he's able to let go all that self-correction, all of that self-doubt, and play to the best of his ability. So in this case, what's happening is, the equivalent of that when it comes to speaking is this. You're speaking your target language, and maybe you make a mistake. Instead of saying, I get food, you say, I become food. And then you say, oh no, I should have said get. So you say, I get food. You correct yourself. But you're also aware, you also stop yourself from becoming hypercritical. Because normally what will happen is once you correct yourself once, you become hypercritical. And so you make more mistakes and you worry about those and you make more mistakes. But it's possible to correct this mistake, but then still speak to the best of your ability on the next mistake. So you correct a mistake, but you don't become hypercritical, doubting yourself. You're still able to perform to the best of your ability. So this is another approach. You haven't divided things into practice and performance, but you've kind of merged practice and performance into your speaking. So it's up to you which method you'd like to use. Now, I do have, there are certain mistakes which, if you make them, will guarantee that you're not going to become fluent in your target language. In fact, they block improvement of fluency. And I call this the 5 enemies of fluency in a language. I've made a video, actually, in which I describe these 5 enemies of fluency so that you can avoid them and guarantee fluency in your target language. So, if you'd like to know what these enemies are, I've made a video on it and the link is in the description, called the 5 enemies of fluency. You just click there and you'll be able to get those 5 enemies that might be stopping you from becoming fluent. As I mentioned before, everything I'm describing in this video, I've described in greater detail in my writing. So I have notes for this video written down where I explain in detail. If you watch this entire video carefully, and you read the notes carefully, your understanding of this topic of self-correction when speaking is going to be very deep, which will of course lead to results, so long as you apply the principles I've taught. So to get this, just go in the description. You'll see a link to the notes to this particular video. Okay, as mentioned before, I make videos every Monday at 8 AM Central African Time. That's when I publish a video. If you don't want to miss out on any of those videos, make sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell notification. Ding, 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 ding. That way you'll be notified whenever I publish a new video. Thank you very much once again for watching this video, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Bye.